The desert stretched endlessly, a barren expanse of cracked, sun-baked earth fractured into jagged, irregular patterns. Sparse tufts of scraggly grass clung stubbornly to life, scattered across the arid plain like remnants of a forgotten tapestry. The sun loomed high in a flawless azure sky, its searing rays casting sharp, elongated shadows that carved the ground into stark contrasts of light and dark. Waves of heat shimmered, warping the edges of the horizon where the faint silhouette of a distant forest appeared like a fleeting mirage. At the heart of this unforgiving wasteland, in a small clearing, Zephyr stood motionless. His wings, sleek and faintly iridescent, were slightly extended, catching the barest hint of a breeze that whispered across the desolation. His golden eyes were sharp and unyielding, and they were fixed on the figure opposite him. Growitz, a manic Nazari bat, swayed erratically in the dry wind, draped in tattered purple robes that flared and twisted with each gust. His hunched form exuded a chaotic energy. A single glassy yellow eye rolled unnervingly in its socket, its unsettling glow catching the sunlight as a jagged grin split his face. Beside Grawitz scurried Zen, a sentient paper bag with edges crinkled from countless folds and an energy that jittered visibly. The bag trembled, its movements erratic as if it could sense the tension suffusing the air. The clearing seemed poised on the edge of chaos. Grawitz broke the silence with a wild cackle, his voice grating against the eerie stillness. "Ha! Zephyr, this is where you fall." Zephyr's calm voice cut through the noise like the steady drip of water in a cavern. "Do you really think your configurations of monsters can stop me?" The wind rose slightly, ruffling Zephyr's feathers and tugging at the edges of his black and gold robes. He stood tall and resolute, his shadow stretching across the ground like a sentinel of purpose. Beside him, Sprout, a nimble mouse-like creature, crouched on powerful haunches. His twin ears twitched at every sound, and his tail flicked restlessly, coiled with energy, ready to explode. "Nothing your bag of tricks throws my way can defeat me," Zephyr continued, his tone unwavering. Growitz's grin widened, his voice climbing in pitch as his madness seemed to crest. "Ha! We shall see. Oh, yes, we shall see." He waved a clawed hand towards his nervous companion. "Zen, my bag." Yes, sir," Zen squeaked, skittering forward with frantic energy. The paper bag held a large black and red leather pouch that seemed alive, pulsing faintly with a sinister glow. Without hesitation, Grawitz plunged his clawed hand into the pouch, pulling out a black angular vertex. With a mad flourish, he hurled it high into the air. The vertex struck the ground with a dull, resonant thud that rippled through the clearing. The vibrations unfurled into a sprawling network of dark dots that quickly coalesced into a grotesque monstrosity. Towering above the clearing, the beast's body was a horrific amalgamation of jagged talons, snapping jaws, and a razor-sharp beak. Its guttural growl sent tremors through the air. Growitz, unsatisfied, pulled more nodes from the bag, flinging them like seeds of chaos. Each erupted into a new monstrosity, their disfigured forms writhing with grotesque, unnatural movements. Zephyr's eyes narrowed, his golden gaze hardening as he surveyed the growing threat. Beside him, Sprout sniffed the air, his nose twitching, his sharp ears sniveled toward the edges of the clearing, where the rustling of tall grass revealed a new menace. "Snakes too," Sprout muttered, his voice laced with both annoyance and anticipation. From the grass emerged 4 tome snakes, their scaled bodies gleaming under the harsh sun. They moved sinuously, their forked tongues flicking out to taste the air, their eyes locked onto their prey. Zephyr's voice carried a grim certainty. "Looks like we're in for a fight." Sprout grinned, his tail twitching eagerly. "Well then, let's not waste time." With that, Sprout leapt into action. His movements were a blur of nimble precision as he darted toward the snakes, his glowing dagger slicing clearly through their thick hides. Energy trailed behind his strikes, marking each cut with a faint luminescence. Zephyr followed suit, summoning orbs of crackling purple energy into his talons. With a flick of his wrist, he hurled them at the approaching snakes, obliterating 2 in explosive bursts of light. Zephyr moved with purpose, his wings slicing through the air with audible force. Grabbing one snake mid-strike, he tore it apart with brutal efficiency. Sprout, quick as ever, used Zephyr's shoulder as a springboard, launching himself toward the nearest monstrosity. His dagger glowed brightly as he spun through the air, embedding it deep into the creature's twisted flesh. 2 of the network beasts closed in on Zephyr, their snapping jaws poised to strike. Zephyr waited, his body still as his mind calculated their movements. At the last moment, he spun with a burst of energy, sending the beasts crashing into each other. While they reeled, stunned, Zephyr delivered a series of powerful wing strikes, each imbued with an explosive force. The creatures collapsed into shattered fragments. The final monstrosity, towering and grotesque, reared up in a last attempt to dominate the battlefield. Zephyr met its charge head on, spinning rapidly to slam it to the ground with a forceful strike. Before it could recover, Sprout darted in, his glowing dagger delivering the decisive blow. The creature cracked and disintegrated into dust, its remains scattering in the desert wind. Across the clearing, Growit's wild laughter echoed. His hunched form retreated toward the distant forest, his yellow eye glowing faintly as he melted into the shadows. "Growitz, you coward," Sprout shouted, his voice filled with fury. "I will find you." From the edge of the forest, Growit's taunting voice flowed back. "We shall see, we shall see." Zephyr brushed the dust from his wings, his expression steady and serious. "Yes, leave, mad mage," he said calmly, his golden eyes shifted to the horizon, where the desert seemed to bow to the waiting forest. "I do not have time for your games." The weight of his quest hung heavily in the air, unspoken yet ever present. "The quest to know," he murmured, his voice quiet but resolute. "There is nothing more serious." A flicker of energy broke the stillness as Digit materialized nearby, his form outlined by blue and orange integer sparks. His oval-shaped coyote skull gleamed pristine in the sunlight, and his movements were deliberate, commanding attention. "Zephyr," Digit said, his voice calm but edged with knowing. "Your quest is known all around, a shadow of who you once were." Sprout, still fuming, interjected. "What is Growitz up to?" Digit's wry smirk revealed faint amusement. "My brother? He's always up to something, likely testing a new technique. It just so happens he chose you as his test subjects." Sprout's sharp eyes caught a gleam of something ahead. "A scale?" he muttered, pointing toward a massive gnarled tree that emerged from the ground. Black and white droplets hung heavy on its branches, falling into a swirling pool beneath. The liquid swirled in perfect contrast, their sharp distinction mesmerizing. Zephyr's voice broke the spell. "We need to walk to outlast Growitz." The trio began their journey toward the forest, their steps steady as the desert subtly shifted around them. Stone pillars and scattered cubes interrupted the monotony of the landscape, their presence lending an almost sentient quality to the terrain. "His madness will make the path challenging," Zephyr said, his tone even. Digit nodded thoughtfully. "Then my brother will have calculated every move." Sprout glanced at Zephyr, curiosity tinging in his voice. "Who do you trust?" Zephyr didn't hesitate. "Us. Everything else changes." Sprout muttered, almost to himself. "Everything." "Yes," Zephyr said with quiet conviction. "Everything." Their path led to a staircase that seemed to rise into nowhere, its jagged edges fragmented and surreal. As they ascended, the scenery transformed into a jagged mountain pass, its peaks cutting sharply into the sky like the teeth of a colossal beast. Digit paused, his glowing eyes narrowing. "I'll catch you two later in the unfolding," he said, his voice measured. "There's something we'll need for the quest. A few loads. The Bush Forge has them. I'll trade some blood diamonds for them." Zephyr nodded. "That is valuable to know. If you secure the exchange, it will be instrumental." Digit raised his claws, tearing a hole in the fabric of space-time. Integer sparks cascaded around the rip as it opened into a vortex of cascading data. Without hesitation, Digit stepped through, his tail flickering briefly before the tear sealed itself. Zephyr and Sprout exchanged a glance before continuing along the jagged path. "We must collect data on this tome," Zephyr said, his voice resolute. "We have entered the hex worm." Sprout's tail twitched with excitement. "Yes, blue." The air shimmered and a small seed spilled through a tear in reality, landing softly on the ground. Moments later, Digit reappeared, carrying an assortment of items. His energy was calm and focused. "I've returned," Digit announced, handing Sprout a new dagger sheath and Zephyr a glowing iron string. In his claws, he held a tiny hammer with a skull-shaped head. Sprout's eyes gleamed. "Yes, I knew it wasn't lost." Zephyr's expression softened with reverence. "An iron string. Oh my. Many thanks, Digit. This will be of great value to this crawl." The trio gazed ahead as the forest loomed closer, its dense canopy layered with shadows. Zephyr's voice softened, almost contemplative. "Yes," he said, "yet flow. It's the passage. The story must have a conclusion." Together they stepped forward into the jungle, disappearing into its shifting depths as the faint hum of the story's energy resonated in the air.